All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our book chat or our book marketing chat, all things book marketing. I'm so excited that I get to hang out with Sarra Cannon. Oh, let me point the right direction. Thank you, Sarah, so much for being here. I'm so excited.
Yay, I cannot wait for this chat. I have been really looking forward to it. And I love seeing all of our hearties in the comments. I already see a lot of people that I'm used to. So yay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's my computer.
And I love seeing.
There we go. Before the chat, you guys, I told Sarah I better make sure that I don't have my computer playing in the background or our live stream. And then I didn't mute it correctly. So sorry. But yes, so thank you, Hearties, for being here. I'm so excited. And I did want to say right from the start, we're going to talk about all things book marketing. So we're going to talk about before the book is published, after the book is published. We want to talk about social media specifically. So many good questions came in about that. And then we also have kind of general questions where it's how do you talk about your book if you're feeling shy and things like that? So we're going to try to cover everything. And of course, we want to answer your questions. So I put this little banner here that's dropped them below with a little cue so that I don't miss them. That way I hopefully will catch everybody. And Sarah's going to help me catch all the questions too. And I'm just so excited to hear wisdom from Sarah today. So really quick, I wanted to introduce Sarah and then let her share a little bit about herself and about marketing. So Sarah is an indie author who I look up to so much. She has, I'm saying this, but I'm not totally sure, over 25 books, right? Published.
28, yep, 28 books.
28, oh my gosh. And also an amazing YouTube channel. I'm kind of almost assuming everybody already knows Sarah here, but just in case you don't, her YouTube channel is called Heartbreathings. It's amazing. It's for writers. And then you also have a second YouTube channel, right? Under Sarra Cannon.
Yep.
Yeah, and so we're gonna talk about all things marketing, and then you also have Publish and Thrive, which is this amazing course, and I really want to hit on that by the end, but also probably will bring it up throughout this video, and I linked it below. And then just so many amazing resources for writers. I'm going to link them all below in the description box after this video because I know that you guys are going to really appreciate everything Sarah has. But I just wanted to open up to Sarah because she had this amazing, we were talking backstage and she had this amazing stuff about mindset and how crucial that is. And so I just felt like we should start with that.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, I just love seeing all these names. I love you guys. This is so much fun. So yeah, just one of the things as we get started talking about marketing is if I could get one thing across to everybody, whether you're just getting started or thinking about it, is that, I think so often with school and being good students and stuff, we're trained to think that we have to ask permission. Can I do this? Is this the right way? Is this the wrong way? Should I do this? And we ask these questions as if there's one path. And if we don't follow that path, we're going to somehow miss out on what was meant for us. But the truth is, if you can get yourself into a mindset of instead of asking, can I or can't I, ask, what do I want and what do I want my career to look like? Because there are so many paths to success and you're not going to miss out. As long as you follow your heart and you do what aligns with who you are and what you personally want to see your career as and how you define success, you're going to be successful and you're going to make it as long as you don't give up. And of course, there's best practices to learn. There are things that definitely work for most people, but in the end, if there's something that you just don't want to do and you're terrified of it, you don't have to do it. And so don't look at everybody else and say, everyone says I have to do this. If that doesn't align with who you are, you can just take that pressure off your shoulders right now and say, okay, I don't have to do that. And you can really make it fun and you can really tailor your career to what you personally and individually want it to be. And that's one of the coolest things about being an author in this time and about being able to indie publish and kind of set your own rules. So that's really cool.
I love that. Yes. Thank you so much. That was as soon as you said it, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone needs to hear this. And so we are, there's so many things about book marketing. I don't know how we're possibly going to answer them all today, but Sarah is just so talented at it. So I can't wait to pick your brain. But before we do that, I see tons of questions coming in already, but I did have this fun, I call it my rapid fire Q&A for Sarah. And it doesn't actually have to be rapid, feel free to take your time with the answers, but I thought it'd be really fun to get to know you and your books and how you approach publishing. So without further ado, what is your favorite book that you've ever written to date?
This is such an impossible question. In some ways, it's like it's got to be the first book I published just because that launched everything. So it's called
Yeah.
Beautiful Demons. And, I love that book even to this day, even though I can see how I've grown as an author and how much my writing has shifted and changed. But I also always kind of feel like the most recent book that I finished is always my favorite book because your skill as a writer continues to grow. And so it's always like, that's the book I did my best on. And then the book I always hate the most is the one I'm currently writing because I'm always feeling like it's not coming together until it finally does. So
I can relate to that so much. And oh my gosh, that makes me want to jump to a further question in, because now I'm curious, was Beautiful Demons the first book that you ever wrote, or had you written books before that?
no, so I had written, I think 3 full-length novels before that. So I wrote a book that I pitched to Silhouette Desire, Harlequin line, a romance novel. And then I wrote a book called Into Darkness that was a NaNoWriMo novel that will never probably see the light of day. And then I also wrote a book I called Pandemic, which is a zombie witches kind of mashup that I did actually go back. And it was I guess that was my 8th book published, was that book. And I rebranded it as Death's Awakening. So it was one of my first like completed books, but it was actually my 8th book that I published. I like went back and rewrote it. So
wow, that's so cool. Oh, I love that. So you can kind of like, come back to things after some experience and like still bring those ideas back.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite writing tool besides obviously laptop or notebook?
I mean, I have a passion for things like index cards and color coding and stuff like that. So my Post-it notes, my plotting wall, if you guys haven't seen it before, go check out my Heartbreathings videos. I'm a very visual writer. So having color coded things, those are my favorite kinds of tools. I love them. So Post-its, colorful pens, things like that.
Amen to that. I love it. I always have to like have a poster board to plan anything. I can't plan it just in a document. It doesn't work. Favorite stage of publishing?
So I love that final read through. It's like my favorite thing to do because the story's in place. I try to switch my mindset in that final read through back to as if I was the reader reading this for the first time. And so I really feel like that's where I can pump up the emotional side of it just a little bit more. I can really draw those threads together. And it just feels like that's where the polish and the magic comes in of like some of my best lines get written in that final like read through right before I send it off to my proofreader, because it's just that last polish. And I love that stage because it's like you're almost there and it's an exciting stage, I think.
That's so cool that you like add to it. Even at that stage, you get some of the best stuff. I love that. Okay, I'm going to jump around because I see so many questions coming in that some of my rapid fire, I'm like, we could talk about that forever, but let's get to book marketing. But first, I did want to ask, like, what are you currently working on / future publishing plans?
So right now, and for the last year of my life, I've been working on the 12th and final book of my Shadow Demon saga. So this is the series that I started publishing originally in 2010, and I have written a total of 16 books in this world. And so this will be the 12th book because I have some spinoffs and side stories and things like that. So this will be the 12th book in the main series, and it's the final book. And it's really hard to bring all of that together and make it, because you want to make it feel epic and you want to make it feel like this was worth the journey and worth the wait and worth that moment. And so that's what I'm working on now. It is taking me a lot to get it done, but I know when it comes together, it'll be worth it. And then after that book is finished, I do have a couple other series. So that zombie series has one final book in it as well. That'll be the 4th book. And then I started a few years ago when the pandemic started a series called The Witch's Key. And it was really just meant to be a novella that I thought, okay, everybody's kind of freaking out about being in lockdown, so I'm just going to read it live And I thought I'll write a chapter and read it live the next day, and write a chapter and read it live the next day. And my little novella turned into 90,000 word novel, and this whole community that started on my other YouTube channel. And so I'm just dying to get back to that series. So those are kind of the things that are already in motion, and then who knows after that. So we'll find out in a year.
So cool. There's so many already. I love that. Oh my gosh. I can only imagine wrapping up or 16 book series. 16 books? No, 12.
Yeah, so it's 12 books in the main series, and then there's 2 like side stories, and then there's 3 there's 3 side spin-off series. It's called Sacrifice Me. So it has a lot of things kind of wrapped into it, and maybe like 10 short stories. So it's a big world.
Gotcha. Oh my gosh, that actually brings up to mind a marketing question. And then I promise you guys we're going to get to the actual questions. But since I get to moderate, I get to ask the questions. So I'm curious, how do you market multiple books at once? Like, that's always something that kind of, makes my brain melt sometimes.
Yeah. I don't think it's always as effective to be marketing multiple series at once. I think the most effective my marketing has been is when I've been concentrated on a single series, because everything you post is about that series. And, obviously you've got backlist or whatever, but I think that's actually, in terms of marketing and my path, like one of the biggest mistakes that I made is to, instead of finishing up a series and moving to the next one, starting multiple series at once. And I did it kind of more for my mental health, because I just needed a break. It's hard to write the same thing for years and years. But in terms of marketing, I think that hurt me a lot. Yeah. But sometimes we're weighing that, it's like, okay, so maybe my book sales aren't as high, but I didn't burn out, and I, was able to survive the process. So that's kind of something I think a lot of people don't talk about as much, is the thriving part of it, is the mindset and taking care of your mental health side of it. Everybody's so focused on how do I make as much money as possible, but it's like, once you're in it, it really matters whether you're enjoying the process as well. But I think I don't know. I think that you can have multiple things. So what I would do is I have multiple like free books, or I'll drop books on sale, the first book in a series on sale. And so I would kind of rotate those series in terms of like every single month I would have a couple ads running on this series, a couple ads running on this other series. And then, maybe I'm giving teasers in my book, like book reader group or whatever, about this other thing that's coming up. But it just naturally turns out that the thing that you're marketing the hardest is whatever the next book is that's coming out. So it's kind of just, I have a spreadsheet that has a rotation of what I'm kind of focused on at the time, and whether it's super effective or not, I don't know.
That's really smart though, because like you have your planner, so you can kind of like rotate then and visually see, okay, we're going to go to this one, and then, give each book its day in the sun.
Yeah. And in some ways, like I say, it was a problem, but at the same time, it also was a help, because I had some times where it's like, oh, it's been a long time since a book in this series came out, and so that series isn't doing as well, but I have another series that I could market a little bit harder, that maybe was a little bit trendier at this time. And that has kind of kept my income a little bit more steady than if I only had this one series that like was on a downswing. So it has its pros and cons.
That makes total sense. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm jumping to the comments finally. I apologize, guys. I really enjoy like just listening to Sarra. So I'm going to jump in and do questions, but this one's actually almost what I was asking, but slightly different. Stephanie says, launch ideas for a final book in a trilogy. The first 2 books haven't done that well yet. So it's kind of similar, but it's more like, because I know obviously you're still marketing book 1, and then you're marketing a final book, book 3, but it's a little bit different because, like you said, you're focusing on that book this time.
Yeah. If you know it's the final book and the first 2 haven't done very well, there's not a lot of point in really marketing that final book hard. You want to market the first book hard. Yeah. So, because people can't read that series most likely unless it's a trilogy of romances or something. People won't understand what's going on in book 3. So you want to put all your marketing money and all of your marketing dollars and time and effort on the very first book in the series. So what I would recommend is dropping it to 99 cents, running as many ads on it as you can for your budget. There are tons of newsletter type ads like Free Booksy or Bargain Booksy. BookBubs are super expensive, but heck, I would start applying for BookBub as soon as possible if you can afford it. And there are, there's probably 24 high level ones that you can get for like anywhere from $10 to $50 a piece. So if you had $200 that you could spend, then I would spend it on dropping that book to 99 cents, coming up with a marketing strategy for like the 2 or 3 weeks before that third book was coming out, and try to get as many eyes on that first book as possible. That's where I would put my teasers. If you could do an Instagram book tour, if you could get some of the people that have been reading your book to post about it on social media, do some giveaways of the first book in paperback, like literally anything you can do to market that first book. And then even potentially, if you start to get a little bit of traction, dropping the price on that second book a little bit too. So like, I don't know what your price point is, but if your price point's $3.99 for your books, then you could say, I'm going to drop the first one in 99 cents, the second one to $2.99, and then that third one stays full price. That can really help you, because pushing that third book, you're only going to be pushing it to the, however many people have bought the second book, and that's your only market for it.
Yeah.
So it's just a numbers game of getting as many eyes on that first book as you possibly can.
That makes so much sense. And do you do like anything specific with your back matter too that brings them on through the series?
Yeah, for sure. So that's definitely a huge, like kind of overlooked topic, I think, because you want to make sure that the reader's journey is as smooth to buying one book, the next book as possible. So if you're exclusive to Kindle, then you would just want to make sure that your book has that link to Kindle. And if it's in Kindle Unlimited, you would say, download the second book free immediately, like have some kind of teaser there, download this book right now and read it for free. If you're wide, then my recommendation is always, like, you'll hear some people say, put a books to read link, or a link that has like takes them to your website where then they can choose which vendor they want. But I highly recommend putting vendor specific links in the back of your book. So for example, if you're publishing your book to Apple Books, then you put a direct link to that book on Apple Books in the back of that book, rather than a link to your website. And then they have to find Apple Books link and then go there, because marketing, I guess, wisdom says that the more clicks or the harder you make it for people to find that next book, the more people you're going to lose. So just make it a super easy, put that direct link for them to go buy the next book, and don't put like a ton of teaser chapters and a whole list of all your other books in there. Just the second the book is over, book one is over, have the next page should say, some kind of teaser or hook to like want to find out what happens next, or, but like you could ask a question that the reader might be asking, like, will she survive this last, adventure or whatever? Find out now, book 2 is available, and just a direct link to go buy it, because that really makes a difference. And then of course, if book 2 is out, but book 3 isn't out yet, then you want to say like book 3, if you know when it's coming, book 3 coming such and such a date, with a link to sign up for your mailing list, where you can say, sign up for my mailing list, get this free short story, or whatever it is that you might be able to offer to them, and try to get people on your mailing list so that as soon as book 3 comes out, you've got those people purchasing that book. So.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And then, okay, this next question is about social media, which I feel like we all commonly think social media is the main marketing tactic, but there's so many others. So like, maybe we should talk about that in a second too. But this one says from Anna Elaine, when I create content, I never really know if I should make it for authors or readers or both. Would you say your readers are also writers?
This is, I'm sure, Bethany, you probably asked this question of yourself too. Yeah. It is kind of hard. So I think that if you talk to writers are readers for sure. But I personally have not found that having a YouTube channel where I'm talking to authors has like exponentially increased my sales. I don't feel like it's made that much of a difference. And even though a lot of people will say, I would love to support you, but I even see people in the comments saying things like, I'd love to support you, but I don't read YA, or I don't read your genre, or, whatever. And that's totally fine, because my Heartbreathings channel is there to serve authors, right? But I have a completely different approach when it comes to talking to my readers. And I think that what it comes down to is what's your goal with your social media. If your goal with your social media is to get more reach for your books and to sell more books, then I think you have to focus on readers. And when it comes to sharing your behind the scenes process and talking about how you like to write and stuff, that's stuff that writers and readers would like to hear. But if you're going to talk about marketing and how to write a 3-act structure or things that are very specific to the writing, you're going to lose a lot of your readers. And so to me, it's just all about what's your personal goal. But if your goal is to sell more books, I think you would be better off really focused on the content kind of marketing that you would do for your readers. And I know that in the questions that you had sent to me kind of before that you had gotten on social media, somebody had asked that if you were a new author, like what would you focus on that's not writing advice that you could, share on social media that isn't for writers. And so I kind of made a little bit of a list because I think that anything genre related, like if you can really put yourself in the mind of your reader and say, okay, if you write, let's say, mystery thrillers, it's quite possible, especially if you're writing like psychological thrillers, you probably have an audience that enjoys true crime and NYPD type shows and, NCIS or, whatever. So you could probably find a list of TV shows or video games or other books in your genre that people really enjoy reading. So that's one thing you could share is like, here's the things that I'm consuming that you probably will like too. Then there might also be some kinds of interesting sort of, if you write police procedurals, you might be able to share some interesting things about how they like really do scan for fingerprints and kind of the research type stuff that you do, because readers would find that really interesting too. And then of course you can share your book covers and your teasers and talk about your writing process or talk about what you're thinking about for the next book in the series. You could even ask, like readers love it on social media when you ask them for advice or questions, like which of these covers do you like better? Which of these titles do you like better? And giving them some input on it. I think they really love, or like showing your writing space, stuff like that, I think is really good. But I think a lot of people see like Bethany and me and Jenna and several people like on AuthorTube that we're like authors, but we're also talking about writing advice. They think that that's kind of what they need to talk about. But I think the side truth there is that it really doesn't necessarily sell you books to talk about writing advice. Whereas I think you'd almost do better off trying to really think about your community of readers rather than writers. I know I'm talking a lot, but I will just put an aside there that if your goal though is to become like a speaker at conferences and to get an in with Barnes and Noble reps and to become a leader amongst your writer friends, then I think that, that's your goal, then you should share writing advice or industry news. So it really comes down again to your personal preference and what you want to share and who you mostly want to talk to on social media.
I love that. So sometimes I feel like, just to back up what you said, I don't get a lot of people interested in my content. They're like, I read other genres. So it's like, I almost wish I would have made more reader focused content from the start, although I love writing. So it's fun to do this channel, but still it's a whole separate thing from the books, right?
Yeah.
I love that. So I finally found the question that you were answering. So I popped
Sorry, I'm just kind of jumping around. Yeah. I mean, I think that whether you should make it for authors, readers, or both really 100% depends on your personal goals and what you want to get out of it. But understanding that while writers are readers, unless you're specifically targeting readers who are writers in your genre, then I think you'd be better off targeting your readers for the most part.
That's so smart. I love that. And I saw another question here and then it scrolled and I lost it, but I think I also had it just kind of, this is like the most broadest question that I've seen a couple times in the comments already. It's like, how much and how often and how do we do social media?
It's like, there's so many things to keep track of and to know. And I think like how much and how often is so platform specific, because when it comes to YouTube, once a week is fine for some people, once or twice a week. But when it comes to TikTok, they say like 3 or 4 times per day you should be sharing. When it comes to Facebook, you can actually get penalized for sharing multiple times per day. So you really only want to share at most once per day, but probably more like 3 times a week. So it kind of depends on the platform that you're targeting. And my main answer to this, although is not necessarily the answer some people might want to hear, is really it's how often you should share is how often you can be consistent for your own personal sake. Because just because they say you should share 4 times a day on TikTok, if you can't keep that up and stay consistent with it, that's not the right schedule for you. And so don't let anybody tell you you can't be successful if you only post once a week on TikTok. Because maybe if you're posting like the most amazing TikToks and you make them really great, you could only post once a week. But if you're going to come in and try to post 4 a day and burn yourself out and only be able to do it consistently once a week anyway, maybe you'd be better off just once a day, you know? So I think that it's just what can you keep up with, what works for your schedule, and give yourself a little bit of grace there when it comes to that.
And isn't it always hard to balance that with the books too? Because it's like you could market all day long and still not do all the marketing stuff, but when are you going to write the books? You know? That's always an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like prioritizing the books, but like then finding out how much time you have left, maybe like, do you have a time limit that you give yourself for social media or marketing in general? Maybe.
I do. I would say the balance kind of that I've found for myself is what I'm trying to do. Although if you've followed my channel, you know, I've really struggled this past year or two to write as much as I wanted to. And I was kind of talking to Bethany about this since you just recently had a baby is, you know, I had my child a little over 2 years ago, but when she comes into my life and you have a toddler at home, it's really hard to balance and get the creative writing done and manage your social media and a YouTube channel. It's not always easy to get it all done. So when it comes to kind of limiting my time to post on social media, I try to just at the beginning of every week say, here's the general topics. Here's what I call my non-negotiables. Here's the things I know I got to post. I got to remind people that I'm live with Bethany on Tuesday. I got to remind people about my new channel or my new YouTube video that's coming up. And I know that I want to post something in my coven at least twice this week. So I kind of pre-plan that. And then I try to get it done kind of in the cracks, I guess I would say. So I try to prioritize the writing and the other work that needs to get done. Jamie says, you moved across the country. Your people understand. Thank you for that. Yeah. But I think that so for me, it's like, I don't spend a ton of time really planning out or batching my Instagram content, although a lot of the gurus will tell you to batch just because that doesn't work for me. I just would rather sit down, get my 2 hours of writing in, and then go, oh, I could post a picture of this, my note card spread across the table. So I post a picture, make a quick post, and it kind of becomes my break after the writing's done, or my break after the video's done is like sit down for 20 minutes and make a reel or a couple stories and then scroll on social media. And I think that works for me. It's just to kind of fit it in. And then if I have a day where I didn't have time for it, I don't sweat it.
I love that. So it's like, it's not first priority. Writing always comes first. And then whatever's like left goes to the other stuff. Yeah. That's so smart. So I'm picking anything with a Q randomly. So this one says, if you could only give one piece of book marketing advice, which first of all, mind blown, what would you say? I'd say show your passion. Oh, this is their thought is show your passion for your characters. And that's contagious.
Yeah. Passion is magnetic. And I think that's such a good point that you make, because I don't know if any of you are familiar with David Gaughran. He's like amazing. If you're not following his blog, I highly recommend it. But I was actually talking with him at a conference once, and I was telling him about that first book that I wrote. And I was like, you know, sometimes I wonder why it was as popular as it was, because I made a lot of mistakes and my writing is really young in that book. And he's like, well, it's because you put so much of your passion into it, like all the tropes that you love the most and all of the, like a lot of people call it your id or whatever. It's like, these are the things that are in your mind, like, oh, I love writing about twins, or I love writing about car accidents, or I love, you know, and so when you put that passion in, even if the story isn't written perfectly, of course, we want to write as well as we can at the moment, but it's that passion that becomes magnetic, I think. So I think that is really good. And in terms of my like one piece of book marketing advice, it would always be that your most valuable marketing tool is the book that you're currently writing. And so if you are thinking about it, it's like a lot of people will say, how much time should I spend marketing my book that just came out? Or how much time? And it's kind of like, focus on the book. Like the more books that you write, especially if you write them in a single series or a single genre, the more credibility you're going to get, the more readers you're going to accrue. And so that like focus on the writing comes first, instead of thinking about all the ways that you could, promote this one book and kind of beat it to death on Instagram or whatever, I think it will serve you well, because you're always thinking about what's coming next. And that excitement translates to your readers, I think.
I love that. That makes so much sense, because it's like sometimes books just take off and you're like, how do they do it? And I think you're right. It's that they were so passionate about it and it came through. That's really cool. Here's one that I know a lot of people, because a lot of us writers are introverts, myself included. How do you but I know, Sarah, you're an extrovert, so I don't know how you'll feel about this question. If you're naturally more introverted and shy, or just in general don't like talking about your books in public, what advice would you give? How to market that way?
Envy. So I love Envy. She's been in my community for a while. But I'm an extroverted person, but I do understand that introverted and shy, that you don't necessarily want to be out there. So my advice to you is really focus on writing the most marketable book that you would love to write, because really what you're wanting to do is stack those odds in your favor. And part of stacking the odds in your favor is writing something that is in a clear genre, that people really can look at it and say, oh, this book is like this, or this book belongs in this genre. This book is a young adult thriller, or this book is a paranormal romance. And being able to tell what genre it fits into is so important. And when you focus on that, the book packaging, so your cover, none of that requires you to be extroverted at all. It's all packaged into the book itself, your sales page, what categories and keywords you're going into, the blurbs. And don't waste any time beating yourself up over how you're not doing stories, or you're not in a YouTube channel, or you're not in these author groups, because the truth is you can create a really strong career for yourself if you're writing to that genre. What you're working on, you've got your sales pages dialed in, your back matter's really dialed in, and everything is stacked as heavily in your favor as possible. And then just focus on getting as many eyes on those books as possible. But when you're introverted and you don't want to show up on social media a lot, one of the things I would say is start thinking about where will you show up well. Because especially with reels, it's like Instagram used to be my go-to for people who are shy, because I'm like, oh, you can just share pictures. You don't have to share your face. And now it's changed so much to where it's like people dancing and you still could make reels. Like if you go check out my Heartbreathings account, I've got reels every day, and very few of them I'm actually in. So you could still do that, but they may not be fun for you to be a part of Instagram right now. TikTok probably is not where you want to be, but maybe you'd be really kick butt at being on a blog because you're a great writer. And there's still a lot of people that are finding content through Google searches and blogging and Twitter and things like that. And so maybe you could share some of your stories over on your blog, or do those kind of things I was talking about, book reviews, behind the scenes, all that stuff on your blog. And you can start to pull people in on that side of it. And then the other side is just taking out some of those ads. So I don't really do Facebook ads and those kind of things, but I do those newsletter ads. And you don't have to show yourself or say anything about yourself at all to do those kind of things. So those are some of my bigger things. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually hits on, I remember somebody gave us a comment in advance. I think, here we go, Shannon Ingram, where she was like, I'm trying not to be on social media. So how do I market? Like, I feel like everyone marketing social media, but there's so many other things too. And you hit on BookBub, newsletter swaps. I feel like there's so many more. Amazon ads, like you were saying, and Facebook ads.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you can do a lot of content marketing where you're really focused more on like the top 10 books I read this year in this genre or thing. I think people really overlook that, but I think that and part of the reason that you overlook it is because it's a slower build. I think it's not like you can just post a blog post and you're going to suddenly become like famous from it. But if you can really blog about stuff in your niche and that your readers are really going to love, over time, you'll start to find the right people for you. And it will maybe potentially take a little bit longer. In terms of also not wanting to spend time on social media, if you're still willing to post there, then one of the things that you can do to not spend time is to really pay for a social media scheduler, something like Later or Hootsuite or I forget the one I'm using right now, Feed Hive, I think is what it's called. But it's like, you don't even have to go to the social media sites. Like if you're somebody who gets like stuck in a scroll and you just don't want to stay there, you can connect all of your accounts and you can repurpose that stuff. So like anything you're posting to Instagram, you can also post to Facebook. You can also post to your blog, all just with a click of a button, and get it all scheduled out for the week. And then you don't even have to think about it. So maybe some of those things would be cool. Metro Cool is free. So good. So yeah, there's lots of those like schedulers and stuff. And yeah, some of them are free up to a certain amount of accounts, or like, the reason I think it's Feed Hive is what I started using is because I have multiple Facebook groups, and it was the only place I could find where I could post to multiple Facebook groups. So.
Okay. Oh, wow. My whole screen just like slid down. There's so many questions that come in. I'm a little overwhelmed by it in a good way. So thank you guys. So I'm going to go like start at the bottom and work my way through. If you're just getting here, put a little Q with your question for Sarah, but let's just pick. Oh, it already moved again.
Sorry. I was like, let me see if I can help. Nope, I can't. Sorry.
Okay, let's just jump into, it looks like Annette Palmer has a good one where how would you market a first or a yet unpublished book if you only have a few hundred Instagram followers? So I feel like you kind of touched on that already with like,
yeah, I do have some other suggestions though. So let's start off by saying this, that first of all, if you're not published yet, again, go back to that first thing that I said about making it the career you want it to be, because I see a lot of authors getting so wrapped up in how do I make sure that this first book does amazing and let me put all my marketing into it, that a lot of writers will finish that first book and then it'll take them 2 years to write another one because they're so wrapped up in the perfect marketing. How can I sell as many books as possible? Whereas the truth is, if they would have just written that second book without any marketing, they would have done better than if they just put out that first book with a lot of marketing. So but some people really enjoy the marketing side of it and the community building side of it. I'm one of those people. It's like, I love the community building and getting to know people on social media. So tailor it to yourself. And if you are sitting here like, I don't know what to do to market my first book, but you don't really want to do anything, you're okay to not, until you have multiple books out, and then you can start ramping up your marketing. That's a totally valid strategy. But if you want to answer Annette's question, how would you market a first yet unpublished book of a standalone romance series? So one of the things that you can do that I've seen be super, super effective is to write something in that world. So it could be something with that couple that you've got in your first book. It could be something in that story world, like your heroine and her mom, some kind of little prequel thing. It could be something about your heroine when she was a little kid, like anything that you think your readers would be interested in seeing about your hero or heroine, or about that town, or about whatever, you're setting up, that family that's going to be in there, or the friendship group that's going to be a part of it. And go ahead and start a newsletter where you offer that free thing as a sign up cookie, a reader magnet, where you say, if in your natural, like posting to your few hundred, which really having a few hundred Instagram followers when you haven't even published yet is like, heck yeah, that's awesome. So you're doing good already. So just continue to post. And then every once in a while, give a teaser for that little cookie and be like, hey, come sign up for my newsletter, and then send out a newsletter every couple of weeks, or, once a month or something like that. But what that does is it gets people a taste of your writing. It gives them a little bit of a teaser for what your story world is going to be. And it doesn't even have to be a story. It could also be some kind of character art for the couple that's going to be there. Or it could be, if you're writing fantasy, it could be a map, or, there's lots of different things that you could offer for free. One of the things that I have done for free is is like the book cover on a digital wallpaper that I signed personally. And people love to put that on as their like phone wallpaper, or, so anything free that people would like to get. And go ahead and start building that up, because then when the first book comes out, you already have an audience that is waiting to hear the links, like direct links to your book. So that has been effective. Another thing is to, if you have the time and it's something that you enjoy, to start making friends in that romance genre that you're writing, like get into book groups and start to get to know a few other authors, or seek them out on Instagram. Like, oh, I loved your book, and let's start chatting. And the more you can start getting those relationships going, you can kind of say, hey, it's my debut book. Would you be willing to share it in your newsletter? I'd be happy to run a giveaway, and kind of approaching some of those authors. And of course, understanding that some people are not going to respond to you, and don't haggle them about it. But some people will say, oh, I'd love to feature your book in my newsletter. Stuff like that, I think, would be super good.
I love that. How do you, I'm going to add in my own question. How do you pick out fun little teasers, and like, do you run them by people, or do you kind of like grab your favorites? Do you like save them as you write?
I think for me, it's part of the writing process. I do end up throwing a lot of words out sometimes too, but whenever I'm writing, if I'm like, oh, that would be something good that I could pull out. Because when you're writing a series, it's like 12 books. I'm like, what can I pull out that's not going to be a spoiler?
Yeah.
But I also have ARC readers, so advanced reader copy people. And I always ask them, hey, if anything strikes you that you would want to highlight, can you send that to me? And also you can, when you go and you pick up your own book, like on Amazon, you can see what other people have highlighted the most. If you turn on highlights, there used to be a site that was like a Kindle highlight site that you could see what people had highlighted most in your book, and they stopped offering that. But you can still see it if you kind of scroll through your own book. You can see what people have highlighted in your book. And so those always make good teasers. Of course, in romance, those like tension, kind of romantic tension moments can be really good. But anything that you see as you're writing or as you're reading back through, that's kind of what I love to pull out. And I'll just highlight it in my manuscript and then pull them out.
I love that. That's so smart to just kind of like, do you keep them in a folder too, where you can kind of just grab them? No,
I don't, but I probably should.
I love that. That's so cool. And then, okay, so I'm jumping from pre-publishing stuff to kind of, well, this might still be pre-publishing, but also post-publishing, like talking about reviews, which is, I think, one of the big things we got to do is, how do we get more reviews? Both before and after.
I knew. So if you see Team Sarra down there, that is my operations manager, Renee. She's like, noted. I know she's going to make a note of this to make a folder of all my teasers. So how can I get more reviews? This is so tough, because I was at a conference once where people were asking a big named author, how do you get more reviews? And she was like, well, you just publish your book and they just naturally come. And I was just like, oh my gosh, if it were only that easy for all of us, right? And that is true to an extent. It's kind of a numbers game that if you sell 1,000 books, you're going to get more reviews than if you only sold 10 books, right? So just understand that it's something that will accrue over time, but there are some active things that you can do. So one is, you can periodically, if you have social media or you have a newsletter list, you can periodically say, just ask for the review. Like, I would love to have a review go up. If anybody would love to post something, you could, so there's kind of some rules about what you can and can't do with reviews. So you can't pay for reviews. You can't give away things in exchange for a review, but you can kind of say, if you leave a review, you can be entered to win this giveaway. So there's kind of like skirt the line kind of thing. So you have to kind of think about where you are in terms of that. But I have seen a lot of authors use that to their advantage. It's kind of like, you don't have to leave a review, but I'm giving away a $50 gift card. So anybody who clicks through can get it, but I would certainly appreciate it if you would leave a review. So you can't like require it as part of the giveaway, but you can suggest that they do it. And you can also give away free copies in exchange for a review. So usually you would be giving away your ebook copy, because it can get super expensive to be giving away paperback back copies to everybody. But if you do have a group of readers there and say the second book is coming out soon, you could say, would anybody love to get book 2 a little bit early in exchange for a review? And then just make sure you follow up or you have some kind of deadline. Like, I really would like it posted by July 1st. And if you could send me a screenshot to the review once it's made, that kind of gives people a little bit of that accountability. And then another big thing that I see people kind of miss, which I think is an easy thing, is just in the back of the book, some kind of quick message that says, like, right after they finish the book, you can say, here's where you buy book 2. And then right underneath that, say, if you enjoyed this book in any way, it would mean so much to me if you would leave a review, and then give them a link back to that book on Amazon or Apple or wherever. So that all they have to do is click the link and put their review in. And that has made a huge difference for me.
I love that. I love that. I think I copied you on that. I think you gave me that good advice back when I was in Publish and Thrive, which shout out for the course. It's linked below. But I really appreciated that because I added it to my books. And I did find one person who complained about it, but then I probably got another 50, 100 reviews since then because of that link. So I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I've never had anybody complain about it and ask for a review. So, I think you should definitely do it. And if people, don't want to do that, that's up to them, I guess, but the book is finished. So whatever you decide to put at the end, can only help you. But I think that another thing that you can potentially do is reach out to fellow authors. So Bethany, you write young adult as well. So maybe I could come to Bethany and say, book 1 in my series, I need a few more reviews. Would you be willing to ask your newsletter if they would like to get a free copy of my book in exchange for a review? And then we could also run a giveaway. You don't have to leave a review to get the giveaway, but it just brings that extra kind of give and take to it. And maybe I would get 10 people on your newsletter list that would be willing to get a free copy in exchange for a review. And then I could do the same thing for you on my newsletter. And those kind of author collaborations can be golden when it comes to getting reviews and stuff like that. Now, where that comes in when you're an introvert maybe is a little bit tougher, but
email's easier as an introvert, I think.
Yeah, email's not so bad.
Yes. And I'm going to throw in another one of my questions here, ninja style, because I love this idea of arcs for reviews. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about arcs. That's a huge marketing tactic that I feel like, I don't know. I don't know if I should say top 3, but it's a big, big one for indies and for regular traditional publishing.
So if you're not familiar with it, ARC means advanced review copy or advanced reader copy. And it's basically just building up a team of people that are willing to get a free book in advance of publication to review it and to help you spread the word for it. And it's really tough because when you need reviews the most is when you're just starting out. Yeah. But how do you find an ARC team when you're just getting started? And for me, part of that key, if I were just starting for now, part of that key is you got to start a newsletter. I saw somebody had asked a question do I have to have a newsletter? I don't read newsletters. And so there are very few things other than you have to write a book in order to, publish. There are very few things that I say you really need this. But in my opinion, you need a newsletter. It is so very important. And it's one of the only places that you will own that list. It's like YouTube could cancel my account tomorrow, or Instagram, somebody could hack my account and I never have it again. But if I have those newsletter subscribers, I own that list. I can download it. I can move it to a different place. I've got that list and I have permission to email those people. And it is a direct link to them. I don't need them to open up their Instagram to find it or come find me on Facebook. It's a direct email to them that they've asked to receive that they're looking forward to. And so, it doesn't have to be this big thing where you send it out every single week and it's got to have a ton of information. But one of the kind of mindset things I would encourage is, there are a lot of different people out there in the world. And just because you don't read newsletters doesn't mean that your readers don't enjoy them. And all of your readers aren't going to enjoy them. There's going to be thousands of them who never would love to see a newsletter. So they're not going to sign up for it. But there also are going to be thousands who are going to sign up for that newsletter, and they're going to be hanging on every announcement of when your next book is coming out. And if you don't have that group, you're just hoping that maybe someday they will see you on Instagram, and it's just such a valuable tool. And so for me, that's one of the things that I would say, if you had to have 2 things starting out, it would be your book and a newsletter. I highly, highly recommend it.
So then
And
what kind of info would you put in it though? Because this followed that and I was like, "Ooh, this is the question I always get and I never know how to quite answer it well."
well, I mean, you can just, it's those same kinds of things. So you can talk about what your behind the scenes process is. You can just give them a quick update. Hey, how's it going? It's a random Tuesday. Here's my book is at 10,000 words and I'm working on it every day. How are you doing? It can just be as simple as that. It can be behind the scenes. It can be character sketches. It can be interviews with characters. Like you can get as creative or just be as, straightforward about it as possible. And you can put in there book teasers, you can do giveaways, you can do just a little bit of behind the scenes or day in the life type stuff. You can share whatever books you're currently enjoying. You can share how long it's going to be until your next book is coming out. There's just so many different ideas. And if you wanted to, you could have it be a letter you write to your readers that you put some creativity in, or it can just literally be an image that says, I'm at 10,000 words, getting so excited for how this is going. Here's a quick teaser. And then that's all that you're sending out. But it is super, super important. And this is definitely one of the places that I have dropped the ball for myself. It's like my Heartbreathings newsletter is 100% on point. It's like so good. I'm consistent with it. My Sarra Cannon newsletter is a big mess. And it's like one of the big places that I really regret some of the steps that I have failed to take, I guess. But when you're just getting started out and you have that small, even just that small group on your newsletter, that's such a great place to get reviews from and to build your ARC team from, just to kind of go back to that topic, because these are the people that are like, have raised their hand and said, I want as much information about your books. I love them. Those are the people. And so when you reach out to them and say, hey, would anybody like to be a part of my advanced reader team? That's where you're going to start building them. And that's actually the places that I started finding my beta readers as well. So that newsletter can be very valuable.
I love that. I've always heard people talk about the street team as being a separate thing, but I always see my newsletter as the street team. Like those are the people who, they're on your side. They want to help you with everything. So like, do you want to do a cover reveal with me? Do you want to do this? Yeah. I love that. This is another good question that also brought up more questions from me. But first, we'll start with what Michael asks here. You're finishing a couple book series. So what advice would you give yourself as you began back when you began writing your first book in the series?
Oh my goodness. Well, one big thing, depending on the genre that you're writing, but I'm writing basically fantasy, young adult fantasy. And I wish that I had started a book Bible from the beginning, because consistency is so important when you're world building, no matter what genre you're writing. It's so important to stay consistent from book to book. And I was going about it where I was like trying to keep paper notes, which I am a big paper planner person, but man, when it comes to a 12-book series, you need some kind of digital tool that's searchable. So that's one advice, is to say, keep as many detailed notes as you can. And then the other piece of advice I would have is, don't feel like you have to have it all figured out from the beginning. Just trust yourself that when I think so many of us, once we learn to really trust our intuition, we'll understand that it's going to all work out. Like I don't have to know what happens in book 12 before I start writing book 1. And I think a lot of people get mixed up in that. And when I first started, I was kind of that happy-go-lucky, oh, it's going to be a trilogy, whatever. And I, because of that, I was passionate about it and I was just in the moment. But I would say, even if I were going to begin a new series now, it's almost harder for me, because I want to have it all figured out. I want to know it's the exact right genre and I want to be able to market it just right. And it's almost kind of like my knowledge is holding me back, if that makes sense a little bit. It's like I know so much and I can see the possibilities that I'm like in a little bit of analytical overwhelm. So when you're beginning writing the first book in a series, I would say, trust your intuition. Don't feel like you have to have the entire roadmap of everything that you're going to do from here on out. Keep lots of detailed notes. And if you're going to be writing a series and you're going to be spending a lot of time with it, make sure that you know exactly what genre it fits into. Because my series about zombies and witches, it's like, where does this fit? Is it dystopian? Is it is it horror? Is it magic? Is it fantasy? Who knows? And that book, I have some people, like I saw somebody say, oh, I love that series. I have like diehard series fans for that, but that has never sold as well. And, you know, I always tell people, write what you love, of course, like write what you love. But when you're talking about stacking the odds in your favor, try to write something that's already an established genre instead of trying to create one yourself.
But it's kind of cool because you had established yourself, so then you can explore some more, knowing that you have some built-in readers. So you almost set yourself up for success still, even though it's not, even though you're frustrated with it. It's like, well, it's still kind of worked in your favor, though.
Yeah. And, you know, and there are people that's their favorite series of mine. And I personally love that series, but there's some people who are like, I don't read zombies, or I don't know why are there witches and zombies in the same series? I don't know. So, yeah.
This question, what this made me think of is, okay, so I have to read it again to remember. Advice for when you begin. Okay, so I was wondering, when I saw this question, I thought it was, should you start out and know the whole series? And you kind of already answered this. Or do you just kind of wing it one book at a time, you know, see where it takes you? Do you feel like there's the right way? Or what?
I mean, for me, it's always like I have a rough idea of who the big bad is, but I surprise myself every single book. And so when I tried to kind of plot things out in advance, everything changed and I ended up just wasting my time because I am such an intuitive writer. I love to plot, but then eventually there comes a point where it's like, I have to just give myself over to whatever this series is going to be or whatever this story is going to be. And there's always twists in every book that I write that I didn't see coming that affect what's coming in the next book. So for me to pre-plot the whole 12 books would have just been a complete waste of time because by book 2, it would have all changed anyway. So for me, that worked well to be like, okay, as soon as this book is done, and of course there's things that you set up, little plants and things that you're like, oh, this is going to be a reveal in the next book or, you know, a couple books down the line. But for the most part, I'm just winging it.
I love that. Okay. That was like, I had to tangent and ask, even though it's marketing related, but this next marketing question I love also. It says, if you're doing a rebrand, what's the best place to start with marketing specifically?
So if you're doing a rebrand, hello, Jenna. Are you talking about for your author career as a whole or just for one series? Just if you are here to answer that in the comments, because I think that if you're rebranding your just one series and you're doing that rebrand with a series, then I think that the best place to start really is to, first of all, start teasing on social media that there's a rebrand coming, there's a refresh coming, there's some cool stuff that's going to be going, and start kind of teasing those covers, because one of the biggest parts of a rebrand is going to be a new title or a new cover or something like that. So series, not the entire author brand. Yeah. So I rebranded all of my series at least once, some of them twice. Part of the joy of being an indie as well is that you have so much control that you can rebrand when you want to. And that can be a huge marketing tool as well. And in fact, in Publish and Thrive, I have a whole section on a whole course video lecture on rebranding a series. And I feel like one of the first places you start is that visual aspect of it, because the rebrand is really so much about the visual. And even if you've partially rewritten parts of the books, or really if anything you've done in terms of fresh edits and it's much cleaner or the storylines change, definitely let people know oh, you're definitely going to want to reread these, exciting stuff like that. And then also, I think, again, focusing as much marketing as you can on the first book in the series. So showing that branded, the whole new series branded in marketing imagery and things like that, so they can see how well everything looks cohesively, but also just going back to that, because in a rebrand, your main goal is not to reach your current readers, it's to reach new readers. And so you really want to try to reach out to, how can I market that first book all over again as if it were a fresh, brand new book? And so that's where you want to focus. Whether if you've got the whole series is completed and the first book's never been free, it's a really good time to set that first book free, try to get as many ads on it as possible, and just use those visuals in the strongest ways you can. Reach out to author collabs, see if you can get that first book into a box set. There's so many different things that you can do, but really taking that first book as if it were a brand new book and you're marketing it fresh for the first time is going to be one of your best tools.
I love that. I love that so much. And I also think that kind of leads to one of the other questions that we had from, see if I can find it now, from the past, where it was like, how do you go outside of, I guess it's about after marketing, but also, sorry, I'm like rambling, trying to find the question at the same time. It was about specifically techniques for not selling on Amazon. So like you were saying, talking about this book and like how they could rebrand it, but coming back to all books in general, how do you focus outside of Amazon, or Amazon and Goodreads aren't working was one other question. Where else can we try marketing?
Yeah, when I read this question before, I wasn't sure if they meant that they're not selling on Amazon, like I'm not selling well on Amazon,
Yeah.
or if they meant my books aren't available on Amazon, or that I'm not
Selling well.
exclusive to Amazon. So if you mean, oh, Ethan Cooley, that's probably, so if you're here, actually, if that's you, let us know if you mean that you're just not selling as well as you want to on Amazon, or if you mean strategies for selling on like Google Play and Kobo and things like that. So if the question is not what techniques do you suggest for if you're not selling well on Amazon, my advice would be first and foremost is really take a good hard look at your book package itself. So you need to go and do basically an audit. And I'm going to do some videos on this coming up because Renee and I just recently did this, where you take fresh eyes to your book sales page and you say, does everything look the way that I want it to look? Do I have a hook at the top of my blurb that people, because Amazon hides most of the blurb. They just see like a little hook. So is that something that entices people? If it's a USA Today bestseller, put that right at the top. Or if you have kind of a, hooky sort of tagline that you can put up there that's like, ooh, that's a good question, or that's something I'm interested in. Make sure that blurb looks really, really good. And then go all the way down the sales page. Are you utilizing Amazon A+ content? Bethany just recently did a video on this. If you join Publish and Thrive, I've got a whole masterclass on this as well. So are you using that visual side of it? If you go and check out Dave Chesson's Kindlepreneur blog, he also has a whole like blog post that's really, really detailed. Okay, I'm not selling books on Amazon at all. Okay, so that's a different question, but I'll get to that in a second. He has a detailed list of like what readers are really paying attention to on an Amazon sales page. So like get that sales page looking good. Make sure that when readers download a sample of your book that they're seeing what you want them to see. No typos in the first few chapters or in the whole book as often as you can. Make sure everything looks super professional. And that can, you'd be surprised how much just fixing your sales pages can make a difference in your actual presentation. Make sure your cover looks like it belongs to the genre that you're writing, and makes it super clear that if they just see that cover, that they know exactly what genre it is from that. And those are some tips there. But Ethan says, I'm not selling books on Amazon at all. So that's a different kind of thing. So if you've followed me for a while, you know that I'm a huge proponent of selling wide instead of being in Kindle Unlimited. It's everybody's, free to make their own choices and stuff, but I have really benefited from selling at other vendors besides Amazon. And one of the best things that you can do on those other vendors is really get to know how those stores work, because they all have their own little quirks. So for example, Apple Books is heavily curated. Everything you see on their main pages, someone is physically picking that out. Whereas at Amazon, it's all done by algorithms and computers, right? But at Apple, they're very careful to curate. So they have higher standards when it comes to their book covers and how it specifically looks. And even on romances, they don't like to see male nipples and different things like that. So it's kind of like understanding this particular, vendor and how it works. There's also not as many categories at a place like Apple Books. So you only get to really choose one. So really understanding how that store works. Whereas Google Play, on the opposite end of it, you can have almost unlimited number of categories. So you want to put in as many are relatable to your series as possible. Also, the way they show your titles can shift and change. So really spend time looking at how those work. Then utilize the in-house marketing tools that they give you. So Kobo Books has an amazing marketing tab, promotions tab that you can every month you can apply for promotions and really get to know those people. And don't be afraid. It's like at Amazon, you can't email anybody and get information. Like there's nobody's going to talk to you, but you can actually email people at Kobo and say, hey, I'd love to find out if there's any promotions, or I'd love to get my series in front of people, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to help you, And then when it comes to like Barnes and Noble, you can actually talk to real people at these places. And so one of the best things to do is just really get to know each vendor and how they work, how they're set up, and then truly maximize your sales pages and your promotions when it comes to there. Another thing that works so well wide at places offside of Amazon is having a longer series where after you get about 4 or 5 books in, you set the first book free. And that's one of the biggest things that you can do to start selling books across Google and Kobo and all those wide vendors.
Do you feel like the free book is kind of like a tactic that's continuing to work too? It just continues to like well, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does well, but I think it's limited because it used to be like a lightning strike. It's like, oh, if your book's free, but now there's just millions of free books. And basically all of Amazon is full of free books in people's mind now. Yeah. So I think that it can be tougher than it used to be. So really what I try to tell people is definitely free still works, but don't do it too early. Because if you set your book free and you only have one other book out, you're like wasting your biggest marketing potential. Like wait until you have 4 or 5 books out in a series, or if you're only doing trilogy, wait until that 3rd book's coming out and then throw everything you have at that free book. And it might even, I'm starting to see more people do pulse free. So meaning that they set it free only for a limited time and then bring it back to paid rather than leaving it permanently free. And this is one of the hard things that tactics are always changing. So you kind of have to keep up with the market as best you can. Yeah.
Yeah, you almost have to reverse engineer what people are thinking, like, oh, if it's a limited time, maybe it's more valuable or something like that. I don't know. Okay. Oh, I love this question. How do you keep readers engaged between releases, especially over a long period of time, which I'm dealing with right now?
Yeah, I have a lot of experience with this as well. So for me, it's some of my biggest places, it's just the community building. So the newsletter is a very good tool, but like I said, I haven't really utilized it the way that I would advise someone else to utilize it. Like sometimes we can't always do a perfect job ourselves, but I keep up with my readers almost daily I have a Discord server. We do a Friday coffee chat, like a live stream every Friday. And I have a Facebook group that has over 4,000 people in it. And that Facebook group is constantly, there's posts going up, like I update them on what's going on in the book, how things are going. I update them on what's going on in my life behind the scenes. But then the readers are also continuing to post funny memes about book stuff and, other books that they're reading that they're loving, what TV shows they're loving. Like I love dragonflies, so they'll post pictures of a dragonfly they saw and different stuff like that. And doing live streams inside that Facebook group, doing them on YouTube, stuff like that. So for me, keeping the readers engaged has been a lot about community and community building. If that doesn't appeal to you, then another thing that you could do is in between your novel releases, you could try having serialized kind of short stories. And this is something that has worked for me in the past too. And I've seen work for other authors is like, let's say you've got a year or a year and a half between big novels, but you can have maybe a novella that's 10 or 15,000 words that every week for 15 weeks, you put out 1,000 words that go out to your newsletter or over on your blog. That keeps them engaged. And it is something else that you have to write, but it's just another way to keep kind of feeding your readers something in the meantime, so they've got something to be thinking about, teasers, book releases, all that, book covers, book trailers, stuff like that. And even sharing teasers from your previous books and your backlist can keep people engaged. But just like the worst thing you can do is just completely disappear for a year.
I love that idea of like going back to previous books too, because I feel like for me, whenever I look at the books I buy, it's always because somebody shared something from the actual book. Like that's honestly what gets people the most is knowing what's in the book.
Yeah.
I should say the most, but for me.
And another thing that you can do, depending on how much backlist you have, is you could get together with other authors and you could say, we're going to put out an anthology of these short stories. So that becomes a new release, even though it's not a new story.
Mhm.
It's just a story you've previously published that now comes out in an anthology. And then you could do a box set of your books. So you have like 5 books in a series. You're going to put out the first 4 in a box set, those kind of things. So you can kind of still have, or you could release some kind of swag or do some giveaways, but just something that they have to look forward to in the in-between times.
I love that. I love that. And like you said, sharing in the newsletter too, the teaser's like a first line or a first chapter or something.
Yep.
So yeah. Okay. I have to share this too. It's not a question, but so I was thinking excited for this upcoming round of Publish and Thrive. I'm also an alumni, Angela. So I'm going to take it with Sarah this time around. I'm very excited. Sarah's added more to it, right?
Yep.
I took the very first one way back in whatever year that was, I want to say 18, 17.
So yeah, 2019, because it was right when I was about to have my baby. So
2019. Okay.
yeah,
So
there's been lots of stuff added to the course since you first took it, and for the first time ever, we're doing a kickoff call, which is going to be awesome, and then the marketing module, which is really long. So if you guys want a lot of detailed stuff about cover art and ads, and I don't cover like Facebook ads and stuff like that because I don't really use them as much, so I'm not really an authority on it, but like newsletter ads or content marketing and stuff like that, and how to use like Kickstarter, which Angela just had a Kickstarter come out today, Patreon, how to use Wattpad, any of those kind of things. We go into it in depth, and we have split that marketing module into 2 full weeks, and there's going to be some extra videos coming out for the first time this round. So there's a lot of information. I am very excited for Publish and Thrive, so it's going to be great.
me too, absolutely. And I promised we'd talk about it briefly. So in case you guys don't know, because I've just been referencing it, but if you're like, what is this Publish and Thrive thing? It's Sarah's self-publishing course where it's like 6 modules, you said, right? Where it's the actual publishing.
So it's 5 modules, but the 4th module we're splitting this time into part 1 and part 2, because I find that the marketing module is like 8 hours long, and it's kind of a little overwhelming to follow all of that in one thing. So in the course, we basically cover everything from how to truly like get your strategy together in terms of what you're going to write and how you're going to release. And that is really a big part of your marketing. Like people think of marketing like social media, but really like just the way you release your books is part of your marketing, how quickly you release them, or how much you're really paying attention to the genre and the keywords, and all of that plays into your marketing. So we get that foundation of how to write the best book and how to get it out there. And then there's a whole module on how to publish your books and upload them to the various vendors. What are the different options that you have? Like if you want to be on all the vendors, but you don't want to have to make an account everywhere, there's other options like draft to digital. And we go into all of that and how to format your books, what the back matter needs to be, how your copyright works. And then we have module 3 is all about the business of writing. So this is about how to like track your sales, how to figure out what return on investment you're getting, how to set a budget, how to set up your LLC or whatever you're going to use for your business, how to get your copyright, like all of all of that details of the business of writing. And then module 4 is now split into part 1 and 2, which is all about marketing. So in the first half of the marketing module, we go through what are the tried and true strategies that work always. Like your main goals in your marketing are always to bring in as many new readers as you can, and to hold on to as many of your current readers as you can over time. And that's how you're going to grow your career. So I talk about strategies for doing that. And then, of course, in the second half, we go over more specific things like Patreon and Kickstarter, and how to set up a strategy for your ads and your marketing and things like that. And then in the 5th module, it's all about mindset. So this is one that I feel like a lot of courses kind of overlook, because really and truly, if you're not enjoying it and you're not setting up a career that matches your definition for success, then what are we doing this for? So this is all about how to handle even just the stress of writing a series for a long time and getting that itch of wanting to be creative and write different things. Like, how do you handle that series fatigue? There's so much information in that stuff. So Bluebell says, is the course suitable for writers outside the US? I know this is a question a lot of people have. So the majority of the course is just for anybody who's writing books. But the part about LLCs and copyright and stuff is more, it's just maybe like 4 videos that are more suited, like whether or not you're going to start an LLC might not apply. Like you may not even have something called an LLC in your country, but we have at this point had people from Canada and the UK and Australia and even India and so many countries, Germany, Norway. And so we've taken the resources from the group and we've gotten links and everything else. And if you happen to be in a country that we don't have links for how to answer those questions, I have a huge network of authors, and I can always reach out to them and say, does anybody know how you set up your business in Japan? You know, let's figure this out.
Wow.
And I'll help you find that information. So,
cool. That's really cool. And you're getting so many comments here. Let me see if I can feature some. Publish and Thrive is amazing. That is awesome. I learned so many things I didn't know. Oh, newbie here, Publish and Thrive.
Yay, Juanita. That's so exciting. We've never done a kickoff call before, but I have another class called HB90, which is more about the goal setting side of things. And actually you can sign up for both courses in the Thriving Author Bundle. You get kind of a package to take Publish and Thrive, and then right after take the Q4 version of goal setting. And it kind of helps you, because as you can tell from this, if anybody's watching this and they're like, how do you do all this stuff? Like, how do you manage and balance and manage your time? That's what that course is for. But I always do a kickoff call for that, which is basically an hour pep talk. And everybody always wants one for Publish and Thrive, and we've never done it. So I'm like, this time we're doing it. So it's going to be a huge pep talk. It's going to be a really good mindset thing. And I do kind of want to stress about Publish and Thrive that, you know, there are other really great self-publishing courses on the market, but in a lot of those, you don't get personal access to the coach or to the teacher. It's just self-paced, which my course is too, but you don't get Q&As that are live. You can't reach out to them by email and expect a reply. You don't get answers in the Facebook group. But one of the cool things about Publish and Thrive that was super important to me is that I am available to you. So we do 2-hour live Q&As every single round, and alumni can participate every single time. You can go back through the course whenever you want, as many times as you want. Next year, it's going to be completely re-recorded again with even better and more information, and you get free access to that. So it's really important to me to be personally available to you. So if you have a specific question for yourself, like, but is it right for me? I want to be able to help you as much as I can with that information.
I really appreciated that. I remember when I first went through it, I was in the Facebook group like, hey, what do I do about this? Hey guys, help.
Yeah. And it's, you know, there's a community now. So like over 1,500 authors in the Facebook group, or if you're not on Facebook, we have a Discord server channel that you can come participate in. And so it becomes really cool to have a group of people that you can come to and say, hey, can you look over my blurb and let me know, you know, what you think, or here's the cover I'm thinking about, or here's 2 options I got on my cover. And you have a community built in now that can help you answer that question. Or you could say, you know, I'm thinking about doing this marketing strategy, or does anybody here write paranormal romance and want to join with me on some collaboration? And you're no longer in this alone, which is so important.
Huge, very huge. I love that. And I'm going to shout out, this is my mom. She asked a very good question.
Oh, yeah. Hi.
And actually, there's somebody else asked this too, but about children's books. So like, would you say, I know I'm in fiction, so I know I love the course, but would you say it's helpful for nonfiction and other genres?
Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of the same strategies that work for fiction are going to work. And when it comes to setting up your business and making sure your cover is right and you're targeting the right readers, all of that is the information I provide is 100% universal, no matter what you're writing. You could be writing manga, you could be writing fiction. And actually this stuff would help you even if you were doing courses or something not even writing related, because it's just general marketing advice and like business advice. But there are strategies in there. There's a specific lesson about nonfiction. And so I don't publish nonfiction. So, you know, somebody like Joanna Penn, if you might follow her, she might have more specific information about that, but you're going to get so much valuable information. You will see a lot of the examples will be towards fiction, but it's all you're able to translate into nonfiction. Now, when it comes to children's books, you're going to get a lot of information, but I am not going to take you through specifics about how to work with an illustrator or how to format a children's book, because it's just not my area of expertise. So I don't even attempt to teach it, but you're going to learn the other things, the marketing things, the business side of it, how to choose your keywords and how to publish the book. But you may, if you're publishing children's books, you might need additional help from someone who's an expert on that.
But it's so valuable. I think my favorite part was honestly the mindset, because I didn't expect that. I was thinking, well, books, marketing, let's publish,
Yeah.
And then you come into this whole other side and you're like, oh, I needed this. I really needed this.
It's important to me to share that stuff, because I feel like a lot of the information that people share really is all about the how to. And when you're in the thick of it, there's so much that comes up that's mindset based, like, am I doing this right? How do I trust myself? I'm comparing myself to so many other people, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm getting burned out on this series. And, it's so important to really think about what you want as an individual. What does success look like to you? Because it's very easy once you get into the career to start having this feeling of, like, I wish I could explain it exactly right, but because you see other people showing their path, you start to feel like, well, maybe that's what my path should be. It's kind of like when you're driving your car and somebody says, hey, look at that. And you go like this and your car goes to that side because you go where you're pointed, where your attention goes. It's like if you're running a marathon and somebody's coming up beside you, you're going to lose time if you stop and look at them. And maybe you're even going to stumble, right? But that's what we do, is we look at everybody else on social media and we say, hey, what's he doing? What's she doing? Oh my gosh, am I doing it wrong? And if you can learn to manage your mindset and really trust yourself and know what your individual success factors are, you're going to be much happier in this business. And I think it's an important aspect of publishing.
Me too. Amen to that. I love that note about not comparing, because it applies to everything, obviously, but especially book marketing, when you have too many things for one person to even possibly do by themselves. So you have two options. You can never do it all, but then you have people telling you should do it all.
Yes. And, Bethany and I were kind of talking about this before we went live, is if you're not seeing the results that you want to see, sometimes when you are looking at everybody else, it's easy to think, it's kind of that fear of missing out. It's like, oh, that one strategy I'm not doing is probably the thing that's going to make all the difference for me. Whereas the truth is, for most people, if you would just stay focused and stay in your lane and do the things that you're really good at, you would see more results than like popcorn throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? So, so somebody asked if I signed up, but now I want to do the next course too. How do I sign up for it? So yeah, just email us, Sarah@heartbreathings.com, and Renee will get you signed up. So Publish and Thrive and the HB90 Bootcamp is in a thing called the Thriving Author Bundle. And if you like, oh, I signed up for Publish and Thrive, but I want to do them both, then what we could do is we could like refund your purchase and then just move you into both courses. Or when September comes around, you'll get a coupon to get that discounted price. So just email us and we'll take care of you for sure.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate you staying on way past the hour mark. If you wanted to, we could answer more questions, but we could also end it too, because I honestly could talk to you forever about this. So no worries either way. But I just want to thank you guys all for coming. I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share about Publish and Thrive that I'm not thinking of? I did link it in the comments and in the description box for you guys.
So really and truly, if I had to say, like, this is kind of my final thoughts of it all, is just that, again, there is no one size fits all path to marketing. There's no 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 5 steps that you need to take in order to be successful. And there's no guarantees. And the truth is that you could do all the same exact things that author A over here does and still not find the success that they have. Or you could do something that nobody else has ever done and find wild success. And there's just no way to know 100% like what's going to work and what doesn't work. So for me, the best like roadmap to success is to first of all, get an idea of what it is that you want. If you know you just don't want to do social media, then start thinking about how can I make up for the fact that I'm not going to be on social media, or how can I outsource social media, and how can I create a career that's going to align with who I am and what I want to do, instead of looking at everybody else and thinking that you have to do it. Because there really is no I have to do this, other than if you want to publish books, you got to write books. That's it. Or you can also actually purchase books that other people have written, and that's another path that some people follow. But it's really all about deciding what you want, and then learning the tried and true strategies and the foundation of what works for everyone. And a lot of people will think like, oh, if I just throw $1,000 at Facebook ads, then I'm going to be successful. But the truth is, your Facebook ads are not going to work if you don't have the foundation in place, like a good book in an established genre with a clear cover, with a really good blurb or a hook. Like, those are the foundations. And if you build those foundations into your series, you are going to naturally be more successful than if you didn't. And so that's kind of the advantage of taking a class like Publish and Thrive, is you learn from somebody who's sold over 750,000 books, but more so than that, somebody who has made the mistakes, tried all the things, has talked to a lot of people and done a lot of analysis over what works and what doesn't work, and is willing to share that information with you 100% honestly. And you get the information, you understand the foundation of what's going to work, and then you kind of pick and choose like, it's the buffet of information, and then you pick and choose what works for you. And I think that is one of the biggest advantages of going ahead and investing in a class like Publish and Thrive. Even if you haven't finished your first book yet, it can be super helpful in figuring out, what is the series I want to write? What kind of writer do I want to be? Or if you've got 5 or 6 books published, or 3 or 4, I think you had a few books published when you started, Bethany, and you're just not, that you could be doing more. You kind of want to get better handle on things, or get grounded in a new way. Yeah. It can be valuable to you as well. And we actually had a student who, I won't say their name, but who far out earns anything I could ever, like multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And I was like, why are you taking this class? And she was like, just because you can always get a new perspective. Yeah. And she still found value in the class, even though she's way more successful than I have ever been. So that was really encouraging. So it's like, no matter where you are in the journey, I think you're really going to get something out of it. So
yeah, it's almost like
I would love to have you guys in there. I said I would love to have you guys in there. So.
Yes. And there's even more comments. Doing both courses was the best decision ever made. I love that. And I agree. Honestly, I had, like you're saying, Sarah, I had 3 books, I think, 2 or 3 books out. I think 3. I'm forgetting. It's terrible. And so I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll just skip the publishing side. I know that. And then when I got to it, I was like, oh, there's so much I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing. So that was really fun.
Yeah. And if you are signed up, or you're thinking of signing up, another mindset thing before you get in there is also to know that, like, you don't have to do all these things. Yes. Like, I'm going to give, like I said, it's a buffet. It's like, I'm giving you all this information, and really you could just start. And I'm going to give you examples of where I suggest you start, and like, what are the kind of main things you need to have. But it's like, I think sometimes we go in and we think, oh my gosh, I have to have the newsletter, every single social media. I've got to have 5 books out, and I have to be writing this series, and I have to have a logo, and I got to have, and it's like, I can't do it all. But it's really, you can start really simple and still be hugely successful. And I would love to help share that roadmap with you guys.
I love that. Yeah. It's almost like picking like a handful of things and limiting yourself. Like, saying no can benefit you almost.
Yep, for sure.
Oh, and I completely forgot, but I will link, besides Publish and Thrive, I'll also link your website and your books and your YouTube channel all below this video. So if you guys want to come back, it'll take me like 5 minutes. I forgot to do that. But Publish and Thrive, I did link below. So if you are interested, I forget when it closes, but it's coming up. Is it this Saturday?
It's coming up Saturday. So okay. I'm going to close registration at noon on Saturday. And then at 2 p.m. we start our kickoff call, and module 1 opens after that. So it's coming. This is the time. If you feel, and I'll tell you, if you feel intuitively, you're sitting here going, I really want to do this. Just go for it, because there's payment plans. There's a 12-month payment plan. And if you get in and you're like, this isn't for me, there's a money back guarantee, and you can get your money back too. But nobody regrets it, because you're really going to have that community, and you're going to have this group, and you're going to have be behind you. And I think you'll be really glad that you signed up. So, but I appreciate, Bethany, thank you so much for letting me come on and talk about it. I'm so passionate about marketing, because I feel like, there's so many people that just focus on how much money you need to spend on marketing, but there's really so many different successful strategies and tactics that you can use. And hopefully some people feel inspired by this today.
Amen to that. There's some free strategies that Sarah talked about in the course, totally free. And I feel like that's a great place to start too, honestly, when you're brand new and you haven't made a lot and you don't really have a lot to spend yet. So yeah, we could have touched on that too. I could go on for hours, but thank you, Sarah, so much. I appreciate it. It's been so fun. Thank you all for watching. And
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.